webcam video. I'm gonna try to make this my last video on George Floyd, considering I've made quite a handful, but this is essentially the last one. So I have some replies here. So this is from my last video on George Floyd, and he said Floyd asked to be put on the ground to the back of the car. It's clearly heard in videos, all of them. Yes, I've watched the body cam video, by the way. Do you know why they're holding on for so long? Because they were waiting for an ambulance to get there. The one they called, when they saw him foaming at the corners of the mouth. They're young. The world's not these things. Don't virtue signal. That's my advice. Take it or leave it. My intention was not virtue signaling. My intention was to show you that, because saying there was a different cause doesn't justify it. Because I think that's now. I don't think that you're trying to justify it. I don't believe that's your intention. But you have to understand that someone, he asked to be put on the ground, not, 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 not put overwhelming pressure onto his neck. And then I replied to him saying, why were they holding him down in the first place? If they wanted to wait for an ambulance, they wouldn't hold someone who's already incapacitated on the ground by his neck. And then, the next one this is quite long, but, I'll read it. They would if he was having uncontrollable spasms, which he was. As lowering him down to the ground where Floyd himself requested to be placed, he didn't want to be inside the car. His legs were kicking violently as he lost his shoes while hitting one of the officers in the face with a foot. Unintentionally, of course. The dude was having spasms, okay, but, how could they hurt them? How could he hurt them? His shoe flew off, but I don't think he was trying to hurt them, and I don't think he possibly could hurt them, when he's on the ground in handcuffs. Anyway, you obviously haven't dealt with police matters and subduing of people in custody. Once they've arrested you, which means you've been handcuffed, they are now 100% responsible for your physical safety until you're safely inside the back of the police car. Well, they clearly weren't doing their job. Why do you think they always put their hands on top of the person's head as they're being put into the vehicle? Well, that's not them being nice. It's designed to avoid any possible loss by keeping them from bumping their heads. Exactly. They weren't doing their freaking job. Floyd was convulsing and wouldn't allow himself to be put in the car. All three officers were strong enough to force him into it. The position of the knee is a standard one. The other knee was on his shoulder back and trying to choke the man. He was trying to keep him from banging the asphalt due to convulsing. For the same reason why couldn't they just put him face up? Why couldn't they just put him face up? No, there's probably some reason for that. Maybe eternal decapitation. Well, then again, that would require, blunt force to the back of the head, which I don't think he experienced. I don't know. Haven't read the autopsy yet. Had Floyd just gotten in the car like he was supposed to, this might have all been avoided. But you forget that he was having trouble that he was panicked and very distressed and recently lost his mom and it was intoxicated. Do you seriously not realize how obviously he'd be convulsing and need to be put on the ground, but he shouldn't be forced onto the ground. You get that, right? Seriously, you can write these long responses, and from what I see, it has some really good grammar. You're smarter than this. Okay. Okay. Had Floyd just gotten in the car? Okay. Before applying, I suggest you watch the body cam from all officers all the way through. I watched one all the way through, and the entire time it was sick, and it just made me really sad. And you have to realize what the dude had been through. He asked to be put on the ground, but he did not ask to be forced under that much pressure. Which is what Bonnie Copter 8 said. He said, he was obviously scared. Violence shouldn't have been the resort, which I agree with. He requested to be put on the ground, not forcibly pressured on the ground with a knee on his neck. The logic of, hey, they were waiting for an ambulance, is not a good justification for his death, and then trying to justify it with that is just outright disrespectful. Agreed. If they're waiting for an ambulance, putting your knee on the neck is the worst thing to do, especially when they're screaming, I can't breathe. And they also said like he was doing this beforehand, but that would just make it worse. Oh, there's a slight typo or grammar error right there. I won't nitpick, but fine. Also, just because they're not following the officer's orders does not mean that they have to automatically use brute force against them. He obviously was scared. They could have sympathized with that. This same could have happened before, which could have had serious effects on him. So please don't justify his death with they were waiting for an ambulance, but they accidentally killed him. Because if that was true, they wouldn't have ignored his cries of, I can't breathe. Don't put words in my mouth. The reason he died is because of high levels of fentanyl. I can't talk. Fentanyl in his system, combined with the physical stress of resisting the attempts to put him in the car. No. It was the high amounts of fentanyl in his system, plus the fact that he was having breathing problems because he was having sorry, hairs in my eyes. Okay. Because he was having, he was being panicked and like instead of he asked to be put on the ground, and he was convulsing, but like they could have like just, but instead of using brute force to help him convulsing and like there's like other ways they could do that, and like I said, they could just lie him face up. Come on, man. If you watch any of the body cams, like I told you to, you would have seen him saying, I can't breathe, way before he was placed on the ground. Like I said, that just makes it worse because putting your knee on someone's neck who already has breathing issues is a terrible idea. I mean, what would you expect? Someone is telling you that they can't breathe, and then minutes later you decide to put your knee on his neck? What? That's illogical. No one. And my intention was not to virtue signal. I don't think your intention was to justify it. I think you think that you were doing the right thing, which, I mean, I'm no saint, but, and I wasn't trying to be, I was trying to make people understand that this is a horrible thing. We shouldn't be making a challenge out of it and trying to justify making a challenge out of it, which was my issue in the first place. Because I'm okay with people making jokes, but honestly, if you're making a challenge out of it, that's just wrong. Before that's when Seth started. The feeling of not being able to breathe, even though you're breathing, that is one of the common among fentanyl overdoses. If he was having breathing issues, why would they? Okay, let's not repeat my points. Let's just continue. No. He was never gasping for breath when his knee was restraining him. The knee was to restrain and limit the movements of his head, not to choke him. Still. But, like, really? Like, they had to resort to holding down his neck, even though there's, like, many other ways they could have, like, helped him while he was convulsing on the ground? Okay. The fact that you can hear him quite clearly talking the whole time without any problems is evidence that he was breathing fine. You can't talk about breath in your lungs to push the words out. Let me show you something. You can clearly hear me, but I can't really breathe. You get it? Okay. He was, but the overdose made him feel like he wasn't getting in there. He was obviously. They called for the ambulance before they even took him across the street to put him in the car. Again, watch all the body cam footage without skipping through. And ask yourself this: why would anyone, especially a cop in broad daylight with plenty of people watching and recording, intentionally try to kill someone in the middle of the street for the whole world to see for 9 minutes straight? I get it, but really think about it. Like, why would they? But like, really, like they were trying to, like, if they were trying to limit the convulsions, why, like, why couldn't they put him face up, or even just, have someone just hold his legs down and like keep his head in place some other way, like have him face up, hold down his legs, and then just cradle his head. Anyway, let's continue with this. Um, Knowing full well that everyone's being recorded by their own body cams and an HG, but by security cams and phones. See, people don't usually commit crimes in front of cameras if they can help it. That's the first clue. And the cops, at no time were violent. There was no violence in the entire event. Watched the body cams the entire 40+ minutes. And he wasn't scared of them. He was being, but still, if he was screaming it before putting your knee on his neck isn't the solution. So I didn't say we were justified. I was talking about if you were. Sorry, the confusion. No PTSD, and no, he wasn't being claustrophobic either. He was sitting in his car with no shoes, and it's more compact than the squad car. Oh, come on, dude. Like, it was BS, and they all knew it. But you have to understand. Put yourself in his shoes. He like, being overdosed on fentanyl and being forced to be put into a compact state. I think he could like go into his car just fine because like he knows that he can hop in and out of the car whenever he wants to. But like being put back into the squad car, and even if it's not compact, it can still feel a little bit more claustrophobic. And he was also overdosed on fentanyl. Keep that in mind. And there are some things I agree with, like, yeah, he could have breathing issues because of the fentanyl. But, like, seriously? Like, maybe they weren't trying to kill him, but they definitely should not have put their knee on his neck. Like, seriously. That alone justify. Oh, wait, okay. They couldn't trust the man, and he was strong enough to overpower him even when handcuffed. What? No. What? No matter how strong you are, there is no way. Like if you have handcuffs, the most important part of your body is just gone. You can't really use your arms if they're behind your back and tied together, basically. Like, do you think you like? Do you think like I don't think he wanted to hurt them. So like, why would they want to hurt him? Well, they didn't want to hurt him. I don't. I hope they did want to. Um, but they should not have pinned. They should not have pinned him down by his neck. Really, and keeping him pinned down because there was obviously something wrong. And they couldn't trust him just because of the knee on the back of the nose doesn't automatically you can't breathe. Oh, just think about it. Think about it for 1 second. Imagine a knee on your neck while you're having breathing troubles. Like seriously, they should not have pinned him on the ground. And more importantly, he was overdosed on fentanyl. He didn't want to be forced to be put in the back of the car, so he asked to be put on the ground. He was convulsing. But like, do you not realize that there are multiple different ways that they could do it besides resorting to pinning him by the neck? Like, couldn't they just hold his head though? You realize they could just hold his head, not the neck. They can hold his head. They can hold his head down, man, with their hands. Yeah, They can hold their head down with both hands. I mean, it's not like they had to use their knee on the neck. And it's not like, you can just push down the head with both hands and it'll work. I mean, unless the dude is like, because like he not only was he intoxicated, but he was also very panicked, and I don't think he would. So like really, um, and he was being shown. Oh, he wouldn't have been talking, and that's while the use of force is not violent force. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Knee on the neck is not. Why? Knee on the neck. It's not like if someone can't breathe, or someone's having breathing problems, or they might be having breathing problems. Don't put pressure on the neck. Seriously, blows my mind. Blows my goddamn mind. Of course, you don't see this woman looking for the outfit of the person on the sidewalk. They give you attention to content. I've seen the body cam. I think they Andrew may have seen the body cam. I don't know if he did, but I have. I've seen one, and I've like seriously like try to understand what it felt like to be George Floyd. You're like you're being pulled over in a car, like, and you're forced to be put into a space which you feel is compact, and you're intoxicated. You recently lost your mom. You recently had COVID, like, and all that. Seriously, he was crying for his mom while it happened. He was obviously scared. Like, seriously, I feel like I, I know you're trying to get me to understand how, like, the cops. Wait a minute. Hold on, I'm seeing something wrong here. Hold on. You said that. Oh, what did you say? You said, don't put words in my mouth. And that assumes you were talking about the justifying thing, which you said before. Then how come you talk about about like the pinning being justified? I'm gonna be honest. What did you say? It's like, don't put words in my mouth. What did you mean by that? Like, someone not pinned him down by the neck. Like, really? I'm I'm trying to understand what makes you think that's okay for them to pin someone who probably is having trouble breathing onto the ground by the neck, which can, make it hard to breathe. And he's crying for his mother, he's crying for his kids. Alright? Like, you're not. Listen, this may come off in a bad way, and. But you're not. I'm not a saint. No one is, really, if you think about it. Because we've all done something we've all regret, and we're not always right. But, and I understand that there's a few things I will take back, like the whole, like, stabbing somebody, was it still okay for me to stab them? That's kind of a dumb metaphor if you think about it, really. Because they died. Because the death is related to the stabbing. And his death was from the drug. Um, so really that metaphor doesn't really work. Um, but you're not some smart guy. You're not you're not right here. Because you have to understand that it's like making it a challenge is a terrible thing to do, especially like because you're making a mockery out of someone's death for attention. That's screwed up, and the fact that you try to justify it is terrible. The fact that you try to justify him being pinned to the ground is a terrible thing, and you're a piece of shit. Alright, anyway, this is the last video on George Floyd. I swear I won't bring up George Floyd again unless I'm doing a Q&A and you ask a question about that. Then, yeah. Also, and then there's some kind of funny replies, like, oh, this one is, from No Name 101. George Floyd didn't die, he's playing Fortnite. Oh, yeah, that was, like, one, hold on, I think this is one of the comments. Okay, the comments one. I think it was from this guy. No videos. I think it might be a different person. Actually, I think it's a different video. Let me find it. I think it might be this one. The original. There's nothing. Okay. May have been, may have been deleted, or it's not really there. Like, I'm George Floyd, I'm alive, I'm playing Fortnite. Sort of thing. But, there's this one from Jonathan Jack, which I will respond to. By the way, I don't get people. Apparently, you can't buy them anymore. That's a joke about slavery. I mean, that's not a joke about. I mean, that's not making a challenge out of a person's death. That's disrespectful. It's also dark. Even if there's a line, it's not huge. You also said that you like dark jokes, but you seem like the kind of person you say you like your jokes here, but then you get offended by the joke. Really? Because like my issue is it being a challenge, not necessarily people making jokes about it in the first place. You realize that, right? You get that, right? Okay. And then the last line is, by the way, when I first read this, I felt like I was losing brain cells by the second. Please go back to listening to My Chemical Romance and turn off the lights. So this guy decided, I guess he was making fun of my hair? You realize at this time, I was, like, this is, like, about the time I was getting out of my emo phase, and, like, I was getting into metal. Like, I'm wearing a Metallica shirt as we speak. And, like, listen, I'm not just gonna sit here and let people make a mockery of someone's death. Because, like, the death is tragic. There's no way you can justify the fact that he was pinned on the ground. And like, and seriously, if he was convulsing, I get it, but, like, there are, like, different ways that they could have took care of that. And you need to put yourself in his shoes to understand it, really. So anyway, um, so this closes the George Floyd chapter of the channel. If you subscribe for videos about like George Floyd, then unsubscribe, because this is like the last one. I swear. I promise. This will be the last one. Okay? Anyway, this is probably my longest video to date. So, I'm just gonna upload this straight onto the channel, and let's just hope someone decides not to report it, because chances are someone probably will. But yeah. Anyway, bye. See ya. Might make new content soon, and stuff that's not about this shit.